Welcome back to the Mythicist Milwaukee Show. I'm your host, Jacob Woelfel. I'm here today with Sean.
Hey, Jake.
We're very excited.
Too excited.
It's not even fair how excited we are. We have special guest Tim Heidecker on today. He's going to be on in a little bit. He's going to be talking about a couple of things he wants to talk about. Some
new projects.
Ones you've probably heard of, hopefully. One thing particularly that's going to be coming out is On Cinema Season 9, which will be starting on March 6th.
March 6th, 2017
That's
on
right.
Adult Swim and simulcast on YouTube.
Yep. And actually, they already there was a live stream last night for that. It was for the Oscars, I believe.
Yep.
So you can watch that if you want to. And he's also going to hopefully talk a little bit about Decker, some current music he's working on, as well as his recent episode on Portlandia where he guest starred. So get ready, because we're going to go right into it, starting...
Well, we're going to go right into it, but first... I have to mention that September 30th, 2017, get your tickets to the Mythinformation Conference 4, where we will have Armored Skeptic, Shiwan Head, a bunch of people, Ron Miscavige, Melissa Chen, Asra Nomani, Faisal Saeed Al-Mukhtar, Matt Dillahunty, Aaron Ross, Seth Andrews, the list goes on and on.
Boatloads of people, just literal boatloads.
Yes, a boatload. And the main event?
That's right. We will be premiering Batman and Jesus, the movie, the film, the documentary, on that night.
At the Pabst.
At the Pabst Theater.
Pabst Theater is no joke.
It's no joke. It's
that,
absolutely.
If Tim Heidecker came to town, he's at the Pabst Theater.
That's true.
That's true.
That is a true fact.
So check that out.
Unless he goes to a different one, he might. But chances are, he
might go to the Riverside.
Yeah,
because I was one to step up. He
whatever
would
the
sell
arena
their...
is, whatever the hell that is these days.
Thanks for shitting on my dreams again.
No,
Jake.
I'm not shitting on it out loud. Okay, so I think, yep.
Yeah, we're gonna get into it, and I'm not gonna waste your time with any more promotion.
Okay, we love you guys. Here comes some stuff. Open your ears.
And your minds.
Hello?
Hello.
Tim.
Hey, Tim, how's it going?
Hey, Tim. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, how are we coming through on your end?
You sound great.
Awesome. Tim, thank you so much for doing the show. It's truly an honor for Jake and I. My name is Sean Fracek, and that's Jacob Woelfel.
That's me. Welcome to the show, Tim. We are extremely happy to have you on. It's truly an honor to have you here. I heard that you started out...
Thank you.
You wanted to do... You were a musician starting out. You were in a lot of bands and things like that, correct? Or a band?
Yes. Not really a professional musician, but I think, like a lot of folks, I had a variety of bands and was always writing music. I think a lot of people, maybe not, but it makes a little sense. A band was sort of the easiest thing to do as far as self-expression. It was very easy to get guys together that had some instruments, and maybe that's why I think I gravitated towards a little more than, we didn't have technology to make full-fledged videos and stuff.
But you did what you could.
We do now, but
yeah,
kids do now, I think. But, when I was growing up in the 90s, I had a camcorder. And if you you didn't have any editing software or anything like that, like you do now. So I guess, I'm just thinking about it now. I was a big fan of music. I was a big fan of comedy too, but I don't know if my comedy instincts were quite as developed.
Okay. That makes sense. So you started out doing that, and now you're going back to that in Glendale. So you're going back to serious music, because I don't know how serious you were back then, as you were saying you weren't professional. But a lot of non-professional musicians and people that play music take it very seriously. And now you're kind of revisiting that now that you've had so much success in so many different ways.
Right.
How does it feel to be back?
Well, it was a little intimidating, a little scary, I guess, because I've been kind of constantly making music when I have the time and putting it out in different ways, with the Heidecker and Wood records and various sort of more comedy-oriented records. So I just kind of got to a place where I felt like I had these songs that weren't really, they were a little more autobiographical. They're a little less ironic, a little less high concept. And I think I just had made these other albums, and I'd kind of gotten better at songwriting and a little better at, making music. I felt more confidence in that. So I just felt it would be an interesting diversion to have created this persona of irony and basically no seriousness involved in it, and just sort of challenge that and make that a challenge to myself and to my audience.
That's a great answer. And this album, you said, is very autobiographical, which I've heard in the lyrics. And In Glendale itself is about where you're currently living, right? If I'm not mistaken, or at least a place that you consider to be home.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful song.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I heard Tim, you were inspired by the Grateful Dead. I'm just kidding. That's a joke from another podcast. That's a different podcast I listened to.
Holy moly! Yeah, and even
no, yeah. Go ahead, sir.
I noticed even in this album, the titles aren't entirely unfunny. Like you have "I Dare You to Watch Me to Sleep," which on its own, I mean, it's a serious song, but it sounds, just as a title, it's still funny. So it seems to me like even that funny side of you still bleeds into everything you do. You just can't help it. Is that the case?
Yeah, I don't think I don't like to box myself into genres too much, and some of my favorite stuff. Warren Zevon and Randy Newman are kind of my two guys for the touch points for this record. And they're constantly kind of introducing humor and going from a very funnier song to a satirical song to a very sad and depressing song. And I think that should be, I don't know why that, exactly died off. I mean, there was a lot of humor in the Beatles music, and there's a lot of humor in a lot of Bob Dylan music, and I don't know, it seems like you don't hear that a lot in whatever pop music is now.
I think it's because people started taking themselves... I feel like... Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that was finishing my thought.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah,
people take themselves so seriously. Like the Beatles, they even made comedy movies like Help and things like that. Yeah. I see the benefit of comedy in pretty much any art form.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were doing the research. Obviously, people know you from Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Bedtime Stories, the comedy. I mean, the list goes on and on. All these TV shows that you've made, all these movies that you've made. But I found it interesting when I started learning about Channel 101, which is LA short film festival. And at the time, I believe Justin Roiland, Dan Harmon, the Lonely Island guys, like all of you guys were kind of competing in this festival. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of exactly how we got in touch with these guys. At the very beginning, Eric and I had sent some videos to, I know how it is. Okay. So we had sent some videos to Bob Odenkirk, and he was really one of the first guys to call us and say that he likes what we were doing and wanted to help. And there was a short or a pilot that Dan Harmon and Rob Schraub had made called Heat, Vision, and Jack.
Yes.
Which was this pilot they made that you've seen it, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the best thing I'd ever seen. I was like obsessed with it, and it was so close to what Eric and I were trying to do. And so I think we just found Harmon and Schraub's little internet presence and sent them our stuff. And they said, "Oh, this is great. We're doing this film. We're doing a Batman film festival. Like, make a short with as using Batman as your inspiration or whatever, And this was 2003, so Batman was kind of out of favor. I don't think Christopher Nolan had come out with his Batman movies yet. But anyways, Eric and I made this kind of animated, really weird. Probably not great if I look back on it now, but very weird little Batman short. Sent it to those guys, and we got into this festival, which looking back on it now probably wasn't too hard. But we went out to LA, I guess, to meet with Bob, and then to go to this screening festival. And from that, I think we made a few other things for Channel 101. Once I think after that, then they sort of changed. They took a lot of those same people and formed this Channel 101 thing, and we made a few things for them. Our stuff was always still too weird for that crowd. I think
Really?
A lot of that crowd was even more like a little more traditional comedy. Not all of it, but there was some more kind of straightforward comedy or genre kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I thought it was just fantastic to see it. Is that where that Catch the Magic comes from? I've seen that all over the place, like Catch the Magic.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that was.
I haven't either, actually.
That was on the Channel 101. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with, since you entered into that, and you do have, your writing is also strange, and I mean that as a compliment, of course. Are you familiar with his, like, writing style? Because he has, like, all these articles on Channel 101, Dan Harmon, that is.
Dan Harmon.
About, like, the story circles and all that stuff. Like you've said...
Yeah, a little bit. I don't get into it too much. I feel like I don't know. I just write what I have in my head. Sometimes it's helpful to have those kind of rules, and but sometimes it feels a little too much like like you're playing a board game or something.
Writing gets too structured, and then you lose whatever magic you would have had. Yeah,
you're just kind of trapped in the structure that you've told yourself is how things get created.
Yeah, I agree.
But most of our stuff is so challenging of structure. It challenges structure, and it questions structure, and it questions intent, and it involves the creator, the personality. So if it's Check It Out, or if it's Bag Boy from the Check It Out universe, or if it's Decker or something, it's very important to consider the character making the product too. So
and you've really taken that.
Sometimes those traditional storytelling structures that Harmon talks about doesn't necessarily apply too well in our work.
Oh, definitely. I could see how it wouldn't.
Yeah.
I could. And I've read a lot about how you've written Decker, or at least as much as you provided. And it sounds to me like, you kind of have a pretty good idea of what the show is going to be, right? Because I literally I've watched all of it.
He literally took the day off today and watched every single episode of Decker.
I did.
That's
I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was getting into. I wanted to make sure that I had no questions. That I have no questions about what I've seen.
And Decker's the offshoot of On Cinema, which will be premiering its 9th season on March 6, 2017. We're excited about that with Greg Turkington.
It is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any spoilers there that we can get?
I won't give you any spoilers, but I will say it's so daunting to say like that there's 80 episodes of this, and now there'll be, in 10 weeks or whatever, there'll be 90 episodes of this thing. But we're starting to look at cuts now, and it feels like as fresh as ever, and it feels like the more of something. This doesn't apply to everything, and for something like Awesome Show, it had a lifespan because of the energy that it had. But with this show, it feels like the more you make, the more enriching it becomes, and the deeper it becomes. So you can keep it like each season like replenishes itself and allows you a place to take the show. And because so much of the show takes place in the audience's mind, because it really is just two people talking about their experiences off camera. You can take it anywhere. So, and I am like super excited about what's coming down the pike because I've seen some of it and know what's happening, and it doesn't feel stale yet, which I'm very happy about.
Which is great after 9 seasons now? Are you going into the 9th?
Yeah.
So that's
going
impressive.
Into the 9th, yeah.
So is that 9 seasons including the podcast? That's where I was confused. Does the podcast count as seasons when it started?
No,
okay.
That doesn't count. That's a whole other ball of wax.
So you've done even more than 9 seasons.
Right.
Gee, and it's still not stale.
And then you throw in the Oscar specials, which
Yep, just last night.
4 of, and yep.
So what's your take on that whole La La Land mess up?
Well, I found it truly shocking. I was watching at the end. I got home from the Our Cinema Oscar special production, and which I was not physically there for. But anyways, I exclaimed, audibly. It was a one of those great, rare, truly live, spectacular moments.
Whoops!
I felt terrible for everyone involved in a way, but I didn't see any of the movies, so I can't really comment on.
Yeah, really, nor have I.
It's just silly. Part of the our On Cinema motto and the inspiration for a lot of that show, and certainly our Oscar specials, is trying in our hardest to diminish the value that some of this stuff has on our culture. The Oscars and movie criticism and pop culture is gotten so out of whack where we people are like, I was praying for this thing to win, and I just can't. It just seems so silly to care about a award show, basically a trade association honoring, their peers every year.
Yeah, it's basically a big ad opportunity.
Like a Ford dealership association of Southern California. They're going to get together at the Marriott and give the Salesman of the Year award out. It's like not that
congratulate themselves.
There's nothing special. There's nothing that special about. But there's movies. Some movies are better than others. There's no question about it.
True, and it's funny that you mentioned that about how that's why you kind of started the On Cinema, or that's a statement you guys have made, because you're on a podcast, and I know that it's also kind of parodying that of like podcast personalities taking themselves so seriously and being so dramatic, and it ends up being more about the podcasters than what they're talking about, the guests. So it's funny that you're on a podcast and that you still do podcasts, even though you make fun of those, which is great. I'm glad that you are, because we're definitely not those people. We're not. Hopefully, I would hope we're not.
Well, and it comes out in office hours. I listen to that all. Anytime we release it, it's so funny because some of the people with questions that come in on office hours and. Tim, you have so much patience because some of the questions that come in are just terrible. Some are great, but some are just, people calling in with just random thoughts that have nothing to do with anything. And, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I imagine you deal with that well.
Yeah.
With the kind of random nature of how you write everything and how everything is done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I actually just like talking. I do actually just like talking to people and am much more interested in talking about other people or figuring out what other people are up to than talking about myself. And that's probably where some of my frustration comes in is not really being interested in talking about my own work or what my favorite thing of mine is or how did I come up with something. I'd much rather talk about what somebody in, Cleveland does for a living and what they want to do. And, that personally is just more interesting to me.
Well, I'll give you an opportunity here, and it kind of changes the direction of the rest of the show a little bit. But we caught you on Portlandia. It was hilarious, first of all. You got to settle a debate for us because I've been watching that show since the beginning. And internally, we always argue as to whether or not Fred and Carrie, when they're playing the Nina and Lance character, is their voice, do they do those voices live, or is that done in post?
Yeah, it was done in post because we couldn't really talk over each other very much. So there is a little bit of an exaggeration put on, but it was I think they're dropped and raised further along in post.
Okay, yeah, because I wondered how Carrie did that voice like all the time. I was it's always so perfect,
so deep, and so that's impressive. Well, it sounds good either way, whether it's in post or not. Were you involved? Like, was that just it was just a guest appearance for you, right? Were you involved in any of like the writing for that sketch or that episode? Like,
no, it was just a guest appearance. I'm good friends with a lot of people involved with that show, and I'm good friends with Fred, and I was happy to do it. It's a nice little few days up in Portland over the summer. It's beautiful. It was fun.
It was very clever you and you played it well, but the writing in the episode I think went over.
It was good. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, you haven't?
So.
I was embarrassed because I didn't get it at first, and then I rewatched it with somebody else, and then they're like, "Oh, I don't know if we want to give it away, but." Oh,
I don't know if we should talk about it.
Okay, I got it now.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil it, but it's and obviously.
I'm gonna check it out. I literally don't know how to watch it because I have cable, but I don't know if IFC is on like on demand or I gotta buy it or it's I literally don't know how.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Isn't that funny?
That sucks.
The leader in entertainment can't. Yeah.
You're in it, and then it's not readily available to you. Not to say anything badly about them. It's just silly how that works.
I know. I learned it kind of a long time ago to not go like don't get too excited about seeing yourself and stuff, and to not really make that what this is all about is a good thing to know. And it's not going to make you. I'm going to watch it and probably be like, oh, I guess I don't know. Maybe I would have do something different. You get a little in your head with it. So I don't rush to the TV if I'm in something.
That's pretty common. I think that's pretty common. Well, I would hope so. Most people,
I don't like listening to myself on the podcast.
Most creatives don't like to watch themselves, or if they do, they're probably in it for the wrong reason. I would say, like if you have to go watch something you're in immediately afterwards, you're not doing it because you care about.
But that's kind of what social media has kind of created in a sense. People love broadcasting and watch themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's always been there, but it definitely highlights it, and now it's more in vogue. It's more, and it.
Yeah,
the whole YouTube culture and all that stuff and how that's affected things it's strange. And you're kind of going in the opposite direction, which I like, or you always have, Tim, with your shows, how broad and loose they are, and you don't have a lot of cuts a lot of times, except for Decker, which I think is making fun of that sort of stuff. But you know what I'm talking about, obviously, these internet personalities where they can't even deliver a sentence without cutting it like 8 times in order to speed it up and cut every millisecond out. It's maddening. Jeez.
Yeah, So again, Poor Landy was awesome. What I did, I just bought the season. I have I got rid of cable a while ago, and I just have I just have like Roku and Hulu and all those streaming things,
Amazon
and
Prime.
And then Amazon, and then I just buy the season of whatever I like. I think that's better.
Same, and that goes up next day for most of that stuff.
Oh, maybe I'll do that.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah. So last year we had the honor and privilege of working with Eric Andre. We actually lined up some guests for his live show in the Midwest. It was just fantastic. I mean, it reminded me a lot of a Tim and Eric live show where it's just chaos and it's hilarious. And so we got to do that. And I didn't get a chance to ask him, and I wanted to ask you, what was the perception like at the 2016 Republican National Convention when you guys were there with Alex Jones and Eric was on stage?
Well, for us, it was quite an adventure. It was the first day of us being at the convention. So we had driven out there from Bethlehem, where Vic lives, and we had a bunch of ideas about what we were going to do. We really weren't sure what we were going to encounter. And the first thing we had on our list was that Alex Jones was doing this rally, and all these, Roger Stone and all these people were going to be there. And so the day of whatever it was, Wednesday or something, our drive in to Cleveland, we drove in across into the city, and our first destination was that rally. So it was, we were a little scared because we didn't know who we would run into and who these people were. We heard a lot of talk about guns and open carry, and we saw a bit of that. And Vic hadn't really done this before. He hadn't really, interacted with people on camera in the way that he was doing it. So, and we had no crew. We were just kind of like really bare bones. And but after about 20 minutes, it was just like, you kind of felt bad for everybody there. Everybody felt kind of dumb and like lost a little bit. And there was so much press. There was like more press there. So it didn't feel like, kind of stopped feeling like in danger. We're kind of like on enemy ground, in a lot of ways.
It was genuinely scary to watch.
We were certainly out of our element and not around a bunch of people that, but everybody would, like, once you got into like one-on-one conversations with people, everyone was nice and civil, and there was no arguments necessarily, and we didn't know that Eric Andre was going to be there. I knew.
Oh, you guys didn't know.
We didn't know he was going to be at. We knew he was going to be at the convention, but we didn't know he was going to be there at that rally. So, I was doing my Facebook Live thing, and he went up there, and it was what it was. It was very, Vic got a little interview with Alex Jones, and the whole thing was pretty silly. It was a bit of a circus, but it really deflated the sort of fear that we had of sort of these gun-toting right-winger, Trump people. They just kind of were a little silly,
Did you see any fans there? Did anyone come up to you and say, "Hey, I'm your biggest fan"?
Not really. I mean, only person I saw that was a fan was this guy Chris Hayes, who's a anchor on MSNBC.
Oh, okay.
So like there were some other journalists there that were fans or knew who I was, and some other people probably doing our stuff, like similar kind of stuff, just sort
of being there watching.
But no like Trump fans that recognize me. I'm not very. First of all, I'm not that recognizable, and I don't. I'm not that well known. So it's outside of the comedy world. They might say, "Oh, there's that guy from Bridesmaids" or something. But doubtful even that.
And the comedy world is notoriously left anyway, I would say, for the most part. Or at least that's how it's perceived. So I can see why most Trumpets, I don't know what they're calling themselves these days. Trumpers.
I don't even know.
I can see why they wouldn't necessarily recognize you.
Trumpeters.
Was that your Alex Jones impression, by the way? I wasn't 100% sure in the video because it was all kind of chaotic, but if that was indeed your Alex Jones impression, as soon as you saw Eric, that was hysterical. I was confused at first. I was like, that sounds a lot like him. So, do you listen to him a lot? Like,
he's a huge fan. He's a huge fan.
I do a pretty killer Alex Jones impression, I'm happy to say, which I do on office hours quite a bit.
Yep.
And
okay.
I did it in the Vic Berger, the convention special as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you guys are.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty broad, like it's like doing a John Wayne impression or something. Like there's a lot to work with there.
Yeah. I love how you guys, like, ever since Trump has gotten to office, the air's been let out of his tire a little bit, He's just kind of mundane and has these terrible talking points. I haven't
been checking in too much, but sounds like he doesn't have much to offer right now.
Yeah,
he doesn't have an enemy.
I enjoy your Trump-based music as well. I wanted to let you know. I was on your SoundCloud listening to some of that, the Trump Tower and all those parodies you had done. Those were great.
Thank you.
Yeah, those were very funny.
Yeah, So the other thing that I know you don't like talking about yourself, Tim, but Bedtime Stories, I absolutely loved. I got hooked on that. I've watched it probably like 3 times, the season 3 times over, and it reminds me a little bit of Tim and Eric. Awesome Show meets Black Mirror. Is that what you guys were kind of going for?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if we had seen. I don't know if Black Mirror had been. I don't know if that was on the air when we were first writing the show. I mean, we were as much like Black Mirror was looking back to the Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. I think that was probably our first reference point was the Twilight Zone, and we had made a couple of shorts for Funny or Die, the Terrys and Father and Son, and Eric and I were feeling like, what did we want to do that was just a different vibe from Awesome Show, but wasn't firmly rooted in kind of a narrative structure and wasn't a sitcom or anything. And so we pitched the idea of sort of an anthology show, and I don't know, it just naturally kind of leans dark, and the more we make them, the less kind of overtly funny they are. They're just kind of like, nightmares that we feel are kind of have some funny subject matter, but is not as conceptual and ironic as some of the other stuff we do.
Yeah, Bathroom Boys was by far my favorite. I don't know. I've watched that thing like 6 times with Zach Galifianakis. I mean, it's such a hilarious premise, and it's just genius. I love it.
Thank you.
How are you keeping track of how you're doing so much stuff? I got to tell you, because I want to take this all the way back. I just put a board up on my wall in my office that has little note cards for all the different things that are going on. So yes, I was getting a little overwhelmed this morning, and I thought, well, I better at least make cards to show so I can look at it, and it doesn't seem as crazy. But is it full of cards? Because it seems like it should be. Because you got your fingers in 20 different projects.
Yeah, seriously, Ed. When I go back in Adult Swim. And I started watching when Aqua Teen Hunger Force was starting to get big. Obviously, Tim and Eric, Tom Goes to the Mayor. And I thought you guys owned the station. I seriously thought you guys were the owner/operators of the station as it was getting big. And it shows how much I knew back then. But yeah, I mean,
not at all.
Yeah, you guys just with the Adult Swim and now all these other shows you guys are producing. It's just incredible.
It really is. And I
Thank
want to
you.
take...
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice little run we've had, but I think it's a bit of a struggle every day to, you got to keep pushing and keep fighting for your ideas, and I'm very grateful, but everything feels earned to some degree, and nothing is sort of just handed to us for no reason. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and sometimes it feels like we don't. I think it's natural to feel like, well, why aren't I winning Emmys? Why aren't we the most popular thing in the world? But we're very grateful too for all the opportunities we've had.
Yeah, but I think you guys Adult Swim stats, aren't they pretty impressive in comparison to the major networks? I thought Adult Swim actually does pretty well.
Does very well.
Yeah.
But does very well from what I don't look into it too closely. But,
gotcha.
Would you even really want to win?
What's that?
Would you even really want to win an Emmy, though? Because we just gotten done talking about how meaningless the award shows are.
Yeah.
And
right. Well, I would like to go to the party, and get the gift bag. I think that would be probably a fun thing to do.
Just to say you did, right?
Yeah. Well, and you want to talk about unpopular topics. So, like, our organization is based on the topic of religion. So we're always religion, atheism, things like that. So we do have a really unique audience. And, we're starting to blend in comedy. We've had comedians on the show. We work with comedians. And I surely see a tie in there. Now, I've noticed, obviously, with your guys' career, you kind of skipped over it a little. You touch on it here and there, like Crimbus. I don't know if you guys were making a statement there, because everything seemed to be opposite of what the Christmas tradition was. But right. Yeah, does that ever affect your writing, your comedy at all?
Well, I was I was born and raised in the Catholic faith, with went to Catholic school, and but I would say I was raised by sort of skeptical parents who weren't like devout religious people. They were kind of the child rearing and a set of ethics that come with it, and the school is a little better than the public school, and that kind of stuff, as opposed to like pray every night before we go to bed and stuff.
Right.
But I think certainly it's informed who I am, and it's made. I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist, and certain aspects of my humor come from growing up watching, televangelists on television.
Yeah.
That sort of spectacular sort of performance that goes on with some of those people, and the absurdity of that. But I also think that it gave me some positive, moral, ethical guidelines to, probably, by default, or sort of like my natural instinct is to try to do right by people, and certain things that make me successful in my relationships with people, and also a lot of baggage of guilt and other certain elements that come along with the Catholic ideology.
Oh yeah. Heavy guilt in the Catholic world, yeah. But that's the thing with us. Like we've partnered with some comedians that really say it's not a big deal. You see some areas of the country that it's a big deal, and people are talking out against it and why it's important. Teaching it in schools, things like that. But then we've had people on from LA in that world, and they're just like, it's not a big deal. Have you noticed that ever, like
what's not a big deal?
The topic of religion or atheism, like it really just isn't brought up.
No, it doesn't feel like. It's not a big part of my life. It's not I have 2 kids. I'm not planning on raising them with any kind of strict religious belief system. I think it's interesting to figure out how to start talking about that stuff, which I haven't needed to do yet, but probably will need to do soon.
Interesting, yeah.
But it's not around us very much. You're living in the big sinful city of Los Angeles. You don't, you don't run into it very much.
Yeah, we were told it's more spiritual, shamans, chakras, things like that. Joe Michelle Milian was on talking about, how it's more of this very spiritual, rather than religion. It's more of a spiritual, environment.
Yeah, they talk about meeting with gurus and things like
clearing
that,
chakras and things like that. Yeah.
Do you subscribe to that?
Yes. Right.
You do? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I don't. No.
I didn't think so. No, I didn't think so. Good. Yeah, because that seems crazy to me. No matter how I look at it, talking to a guru about that with no basis at all in reality is always, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a topic for us. We like to discuss it. We have people on there, religious people on there, atheists, and there's some people that find value in all of it. Like we're atheists on the show for the most part, but I find value in some of the stories that were told. It's very similar to like a Batman story or Superman story. Like some of the morals I take: be a good person, don't be a dick. Like things like that.
Right.
I think that's all good.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, it might be a bad idea for me to say this on an atheist podcast that I host, but I don't like militant atheists.
Yeah, I don't either.
I just don't approve of that.
I don't either, but I think the topic comes up. Like, no matter who I'm listening to, if it's an interview, whatever, the topic always seems to come up. Like whether, for whatever reason, an interview, NPR interviews, podcast interviews, the topic is there, and people do talk about it. So I think there is a natural interest in it.
Well, yeah, I think people should talk about it.
Yeah.
You don't learn anything if you don't talk about something.
Right.
So, but I don't think attacking people is the way to go.
Absolutely not. So that's the worst thing you can do. That's why this ban on Muslims that Trump is trying to pull off, I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever. You're never going to win any ideology that way.
Fair. No. Fair. And it's funny that your Decker character was clearly just like quoting Trump and make America great again and all this stuff. And I wonder if if it's easy for people to separate that a lot of times. I wonder if some people actually do think you feel that way. Certainly, I mean, I don't think so.
Oh,
obviously.
No. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always going to be that group of people, but I don't know. It's like I can't worry about that. It's not really something I have too much control over, and it's a bummer to most of the other people if I talk about it too much. It's just like
right.
It's all right.
Right. Well, you really had to get into that right-wing mindset kind of for that character, right? You really had to kind of experience that whole world.
So was that based off of 24? I have to ask you because the whole Jack Decker, Jack Bauer, it's almost the same name. And I know we're going back. We already talked a little bit about Decker, and I know you hate talking about this stuff, but here's some more stuff you hate talking about.
Well,
was that based on Jack Bauer to some extent? Like, were you?
I think it was one of the influences for sure. I mean, we use it as all that stuff, that whole genre,
Okay, yeah, because I figured that putting the gun to the president's head and stuff like that was very reminiscent to actual episodes of 24.
Yeah,
I don't think he ever did that specific. No, maybe
definitely.
He did. Maybe he did.
Well, I know. Tim hates talking about himself, so let's focus on Greg Turkington. He's actually going to be in Milwaukee in May.
Oh yeah,
we're excited. We're going to be a part of that.
Love that guy.
Matt Kempel's holding the event out here. And I think Major Entertainer is coming as well. It's rumored. It's not for sure yet, but we got to meet Major Entertainer on the Eric Andre show tour as well. So how did you like hook up with these guys? Like how did you meet Greg?
I was a big Neil Hamburger fan, and I think early days in living in Los Angeles, I got to see him a few times, and we wrote a part for him on Awesome Show, and we got to know him through that, and we just became pals through mutual interests, and we had similar experiences and all that kind of stuff. So, we just became buddies. And the more you get together, the more sort of you'd think about ideas and try to get them done.
And you've said before that when you first met him, because you didn't know him back in the day, I think you first said you saw him doing stand-up. I don't remember exactly where. And you were actually like jumping because you were laughing so hard because he's one of the funniest people you'd ever seen.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that.
Certainly some of the funniest shit I've ever seen.
He is hysterical. And what was the date? Did you get a date on when he's supposed to be coming out here?
That is May 21st. Let me just double check that. But yeah, May 21st,
cool.
2017.
Cool. Wanted to just make sure people knew that's when he's coming out because he is amazing.
It's fantastic. And if Major Entertainers there, it's going to be awesome. And I don't know, Tim, if we can maybe ask you when's the next time you're going to be in the Milwaukee area?
Hard to say. I think we'll might have some information for you on that in a few weeks.
Oh, really?
Wow. Okay.
Awesome.
Yes.
Cool.
Is that going to be a Tim and Eric live show, or is that the? Are you touring with the band?
Some more information.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not going to push it. No. Of course
Excellent.
Not. Great. Well, it's hopefully.
Thank you.
We'll hear from you then.
So, is there anything that you want to promote that's upcoming? Anything that you want to touch on?
Just On Cinemas is coming onto YouTube in I guess next week, March 6th.
Awesome.
Great. So
so you guys are releasing that on YouTube?
It's on Adult Swim and their YouTube channel.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
All right, that's all we got. I mean, if you got to go, you got to go. But
Tim,
thank you so much for being
again
on the show.
so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Yep, thanks,
Tim.
Take it easy. Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, so this is the myth of the day. The serpent or snake is one of the oldest and most widespread mythological symbols. The word is derived from Latin serpens, a crawling animal or snake. Snakes have been associated with some of the oldest rituals known to humankind and represent dual expression of good and evil. Some symbolic values frequently assigned to the serpent include fertility and rebirth, guardianship, poison, and medicine and vengefulness. The Ouroboros is an ancient Egypto-Greek symbol depicting a serpent or dragon eating its own tail. The Ninja Zeta, or an ancient Sumerian deity, is accompanied by two griffins, Mashusu. Oldest known representation of this is around 2000 BCE. Other examples of snakes in other religions, the pre-Columbian or Central American Quetzalcoatl. In Hindu mythology, the serpent Shisha. In Greek mythology, Asclepius is the god of medicine and healing in the ancient Greek religion. He has a rod known as the Rod of Asclepius. And in the Hebrew Bible, the serpent of the Garden of Eden lured Eve with the promise of forbidden knowledge, convincing her that despite God's warning, death would not be the result. The serpent is identified with wisdom. The staff of Moses transformed into a snake and back into a staff in Exodus 4:2-4. These are just one of many examples of how ancient mythologies are now found in current religions. And that is our myth of the day.
You have been listening to the Mythicist Milwaukee show. Thank you so much for having done that.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I hope you did. I really hope we did. We enjoyed it.
Tim Heidecker said he was an atheist.
He did say that.
What do you think about that, Jake?
I did not know that. I guess
I
could have assumed, but
yeah. But again,
well, there you go. And he does a lot of stuff.
So such a nice guy. I mean, the amount of time he took out of his day to come on the show is fantastic.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's it. That's the end of the show. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Mythicist Milwaukee Show. The Mythicist Milwaukee Show is brought to you by Mythicist Milwaukee. Producer Sean Fracek, associate producer Fritz Blandon, engineer Jason Lawson, and hosts Brian Edward and Jacob Woelfel. Every week we produce a new broadcast that sheds light on religion, secularism, and mythology. If you enjoy this show, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/mythicist. Closing theme, written and performed by Shelley Siegel.